Hi everyone, I'm Lauren Bryce. I work at Sustainable Westchester, and I'm so happy that you can join us tonight at the EnergySmart Homes River Towns webinar. We are going to be hearing from 3 homeowners living throughout the river towns, sharing their stories of how they upgraded their homes with geothermal, air source heat pumps, home energy efficiency, and more. So without further ado, I just want to orient people a little bit. You may have heard about this webinar from a letter that came to you in the mail. Maybe you heard about this through Scenic Hudson or our partners for Hudson Valley Climate Solutions Week. However you got here, we're excited that you're here, and we have solutions for you. If you're in Westchester, and if you're outside of Westchester, we can connect you to the right groups as well. Okay, so where should we begin? Let's get started, I think, by mentioning how this program came together. So Sustainable Westchester is a nonprofit group that is funded by, well, we are we are a nonprofit group that has many member municipalities across Westchester County, and we applied to work with NYSERDA. NYSERDA is the New York State Energy Research Development Authority to bring this clean heating and cooling program to our local communities. Then the 3 river towns of Tarrytown, Irvington, and Sleepy Hollow joined together to apply to have this clean heating and cooling EnergySmart Homes program come to the community so we can do special events like this. So together, there's lots of different stakeholders. We're going to hear from Con Ed tonight. We're going to hear from NYSERDA. There's lots of different groups interested in helping you to make your house more energy efficient. And after we hear from the homeowner stories, we are going to have breakout rooms with our partner contractors, so you can ask the contractors questions, any questions that you have about your home. So Donovan, I think you are on the line. I saw you in the waiting room. Donovan Gordon, the Director of Clean Heating and Cooling at NYSERDA, is going to share some remarks.
Well, actually, I'm going to say hello. My camera's going. I'm going to say a quick hello because I'm going to yield and turn it over to Scott Smith, who will probably give the remarks. But I'm happy to be here. Really appreciate the work that Sustainable Westchester is doing, and I am going to sort of be on video and audio pause and just enjoy the evening. So thank you for inviting us, and thank you for doing this. So Scott, I'll let you speak on behalf of NYSERDA.
Okay, Donovan, thanks. Can you hear me okay, Lauren?
Yep.
Glad you're here, Donovan. And I'll echo the thanks that Donovan put out there for Sustainable Westchester. We appreciate all the work that you, Lauren, and your colleagues have been doing the last few years. This campaign, EnergySmart Homes Westchester, is one of 20 that we have going on around the state. And the goal is to educate you on how to make your homes more energy efficient and heat and cool them with heat pumps. You know, we're here to introduce you to qualified installers that I know Lauren is going to talk about later. She's also going to talk about the technology a little bit more. I want to thank you all for coming. Efforts like this meeting, your participation, and the follow-up are all extremely important parts of New York State meeting its climate goals. A couple of years ago, as a state, we passed landmark legislation with some of the most aggressive climate change goals in the country, or carbon reduction goals in the country. At a high policy level, what we're going to do to get to these goals, which are an 85% carbon reduction by 2050, is we're going to make the grid carbon neutral. It's actually state law now that the grid will be carbon neutral by 2040. And that's going to be done through a mix of renewables and energy storage and some climate mitigation approaches. And then we're going to electrify the end uses, primarily the fossil fuel end uses. And the 2 main end uses in our state are heating of buildings and transportation. And so the group that Donovan and I are on at NYSERDA is charged with helping to accelerate the buildings part of that. And from a technology perspective, the primary way that you would reduce your carbon emissions in your home is through converting to high efficiency electric heat pumps, either air source or ground source heat pumps. Improving the efficiency of your home, reducing your heating load is also extremely important. If we were simply to electrify everything without doing that, we would not be able to sustain the electric grid. So that's an important step for everybody to take, and almost everybody can improve the efficiency of their home. The cool thing is that, getting heat pumps provides lots of other benefits to you. One of the things that I, as an engineer, really like about the technology is that it represents a kind of a quantum leap in heating, right? We've for decades, century maybe, have been heating, maybe longer than that. We've been heating by burning things, and there are bad byproducts from burning things. It's also inherently, there's a theoretical efficiency at which you can combust things, and so heat pumps remove that part of the heating process, right? And I know Lauren's going to talk about this more in a little bit, but essentially heat pumps concentrate and move heat and eliminate that combustion step, which means they can reach efficiencies that fossil fuel combustion can't reach. I actually have a heat pump that I put in my family room last year and absolutely love it. That room's never been more comfortable. It's a really kind of constant heat, and there's an opportunity to do good for the planet, to save yourself some money in many cases, to be more comfortable and to be healthier. And again, we really appreciate everybody being here, taking part of this event, and doing your part. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lauren, unless there's anything else you'd like me to touch on, Lauren, in my opening remarks.
Oh, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Scott. All right, we're going to keep moving on through our initial speaker list. And the next person we're going to hear from is Daniel Krupta from Con Ed, who's going to provide some context on how Con Ed is involved with our clean heating and cooling initiatives and happenings in Westchester County. And before we do that, sorry, I'm skipping ahead. Sorry. I want to hear from Jeff first. Jeff from Scenic Hudson, one of our partners on the call tonight. Sorry, you guys. Jeff, go ahead.
It's okay. Thanks so much, Lauren. On behalf of everyone here at Scenic Hudson, we welcome you to the EnergySmart Homes virtual house tour, and it's an honor to be asked to join you in celebrating the Hudson Valley's Climate Solution Week. Thanks for being here. For those who haven't heard about Scenic Hudson, we're credited with launching the modern grassroots environmental movement, and today, with 25,000 supporters, we're the largest environmental organization in the Hudson Valley. And we understand firsthand that we face these terrible challenges with respect to climate change. We view this as the greatest environmental challenge of our time. And that's why we're so happy to see the river villages working together with Sustainable Westchester to tackle these challenges head on. Working with stakeholders throughout the region, we've developed a lot of tools to help people understand how they can do their part to fight climate change. And I want to just give you a couple of those ways. We protect land that makes habitat more resilient to rising sea levels and other climate impacts. We promote renewable energy that avoids or mitigates the impacts on the natural environment, scenic resources or historic resources, part of why we're here tonight. We support and encourage farmers' use of climate-smart agricultural practices. And finally, we help communities prepare for rising sea levels and more frequent flooding. So, for example, we've created a toolkit for decision makers and people like you that can learn about and ultimately facilitate the development of solar energy in your communities. We call it the How to Solar Now Toolkit, and it includes education on siting, zoning, mapping, and smart, successful development of solar energy systems on everything from landfills to rooftops. But in addition to providing that education, we're also fighting dirty fossil fuel plants. So, for example, we're leading a coalition to stop the proposed natural gas-fired Danskammer power plant in the town of Newburgh. If that were to be allowed to be built, it would pollute our air, water, and land, and it would undermine New York State's climate goals. So our goal is to work towards a future that reduces risk to people, property, and nature, and holds the promise of a secure, thriving riverfront community within a vibrant, healthy ecosystem. So visit us at scenichudson.org and let's work together to find solutions to the most pressing environmental issue of our time. And thanks again to Sustainable Westchester and the River Villages, and to you for being here tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jeff, for that great context and the awesome work that Scenic Hudson does. Just want to give a quick shout out. As Jeff mentioned, we are doing this event as part of Sustainable Hudson Valley's Climate Solutions Week. And you may have heard about this event through your village channel, or you may have heard about it through one of these sustainability groups, which have been our partner in promoting this event. So just want to say a big thanks to all the groups that have helped get people to the webinar, and to you for attending today. So before we hear from Daniel, I just want to give a quick message that Sustainable Westchester is going to be leading the presentation tonight. And after we have our campaign overview, we're going to be moving into the videos and then into the contractor breakout room. So to give us some context around what is happening with clean heating and cooling in the Con Ed utility, we're going to hear from Daniel. And if you're calling in from another part of the county and you have a different utility, we can certainly connect you to resources from NYSEG, or if it's Central Hudson, we can definitely still work on that. So I'm going to share my screen, and Daniel has some slides. So Daniel, go ahead.
Yep, thanks, Lauren. My name is Dan Krupa. I'm presenting on behalf of Con Ed, and just wanted to touch on kind of what Con Ed has been doing in regards to the New York State Clean Heat Program. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Brief intro here. Dan Krupa, I'm a specialist in evaluations, measurement, and verification. Really, that should be updated to the Clean Heat team. Have been working on the Clean Heat program since its inception as of April of 2020. And my information is there, both email and phone number. If there's any pointed questions, after this or at any time, feel free to reach out. Happy to respond to any questions. And today I'll be sort of touching on an overview of the program, how to get in touch with contractors, the incentives that Con Edison offers, and sort of any other resources that you may need, both with the Con Ed or at the state level. So just a brief overview of the Clean Heat program. The New York State utilities, in order to meet the carbon goals of the state, we have partnered with NYSERDA and the other utilities to kind of provide these heat pumps and electrification efforts and make them accessible for residences, small businesses, multifamily buildings, the like, right? We really want to push these heat pumps as a great resource to electrify heating. And exactly what heat pumps are, they are electric powered solutions for heating and cooling, and they do not have combustion associated with it. They redistribute heat from one area to the other, making them significantly more efficient than prior heating and cooling methods. Next slide. So really, which heat pump is right for you, right? Heat pumps can provide both space heating and domestic hot water production. And really, all three of the main offerings that we provide are useful for residential spaces here. First off, geothermal, it's great for whole home applications, single family homes with adequate space for install. And what I mean for that is that these ground source systems have loops, ground loops that are installed from in the ground that distribute the heat, the latent heat in the ground to the space, right? So the ground serves as both the heat sink and the heat source, right? And they have that consistent heating temperature to be able to provide and distribute that heating and cooling through that that ground loop. Additionally, next we have air source heat pumps. These you can kind of think of as maybe perhaps more two-way air conditioners is the way a lot of people like to think of them. They also extract that heat, have that capability to extract heat from the outside to then heat the indoors, or they can extract it from the indoors and expel it outdoors, right, to cool the indoor space. These can both utilize your ducting, your already existing ducting if you have it in your home, or there are ductless units which can be installed to heat and cool individual rooms or whole home as well. So they do work with existing ducting configurations as well as ductless applications. And you can use these, you know, throughout the home or individual homes. It's a great application to get that space heating for residences. And additionally, there are heat pump water heaters as well, which do act on the same principle as air source heat pumps, right? They extract the heat from the surroundings to heat your hot water and distribute it throughout your home. Great applications to electrify your heating for hot water. Next slide. So contractors, to find a contractor here, all of the contractors have to be a participating contract within the New York State Clean Heat Network. I believe there are a few contractors on this call. They all are part of that network. And the resource to sort of find some of these contractors, we have a tool on our Con Ed website. The link is provided below. Additionally, there is a statewide tool to find contractors, but I'm sure the ones that are on this call will be more than happy to field questions and sort of get you going on your heat pump install here. And this slide really just wanted to touch on the incentives that are offered from Con Ed. There are a few different categories based on the technology or the amount of heating that is provided to the space. And really the incentives change with sort of those categories, right? So if you look at category 1, that is your air source system. If you are installing that to partially heat your home, so for example, if you're doing it for one room or an attic or a basement or an addition or something like that, you would get $250 of a rebate per outdoor unit that you install. Whereas something like category 2, if you install air source heat pumps to fully heat your home, you will get $1,000 per heating capacity, and that HC stands for heating capacity. That is 10,000 BTUH of heating capacity. So basically, you can think of a typical home system as being perhaps 3 to 4 tons. That would be 30,000 to 40,000 BTU. Then you'd get $1,000 per that, right? And then the other incentives are sort of listed below. The one thing I wanted to highlight here is that there's an additional 30% kicker incentives for heat pumps that are installed in sort of the gas constrained areas. We know that there are some gas constrained areas within Westchester. So if you fall within that area, you will get a 30% kicker to the incentives that are provided and shown on screen here.
Right, so all the river towns on the call tonight are within the moratorium area. They all would qualify for that 30%. Sorry.
Correct. Yep, thanks for that. And then the notes that link down there below, I think that'll provide you sort of zip codes or a map that will show you sort of if you fall within that gas moratorium range. This slide really just has some resources available for customers here. If you need more information, I would say go to coned.com/heat pumps. From there, you'll be able to sort of, see most of the information that I provided here. We'll give you some updates on incentives and how to participate. There's also the statewide resources, which are available on screen here as well. And for those, just quickly, those contractors that are on the call, they're welcome to participate in sort of our webinars as well. The next one's scheduled for November 18th. You can get more information on the working group series page at the Clean Heat, statewide Clean Heat website. Next page. And that's really it. Again, if you have any questions, my information is provided here. Feel free to reach out if you have any specific questions. Again, you can kind of get some of this information at coned.com/heat pumps. Or if you have more general questions about the program or things like that, you can reach out to cleanheat@coned.com, again, provided on this slide below. And we are happy to distribute these slides if they not already are. And again, any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks all.
Okay, great. Thanks, Daniel. That was really helpful. And it's great to see the overview of all the rebates and incentives that people can get. So sometimes when people or folks see that chart, they wonder, well, what does this actually mean for my project? And it's at that point that we encourage you to pick a contractor from our list of installer partners, have them come out, do the home energy assessment or site visit to then take a look and see what would be the best solution for your home, and then what rebates and incentives can be stacked on top of the project. So moving right along, we're going to go into another little slideshow, and then we're going to get into the best part, the videos. So just wanted to do a quick shout out for Sustainable Westchester. As I mentioned previously in the call, we are a nonprofit group representing our member municipalities, and every single municipality in Westchester County besides one is a member, and it's our goal to provide sustainability programming both to the municipalities and to their residents. So we definitely cover most of the county, and we have programs. I know everyone is here tonight to think about clean heating and cooling, insulation, energy efficiency, but if you have questions about participating in a demand response program to help save some money each summer, can save up to $200 each summer. We've got information about those looking to install solar panels paired with a backup battery system. We can help with sustainable landscaping and zero waste information, as well as our largest program, Westchester Power. And we also offer a community solar program, which can help you save 10% on your monthly utility bill and helps to support the growth of local renewable solar. So definitely reach out or visit our website or give us a call tomorrow. We would be more than happy to talk about any of these programs. Okay. And as Scott was talking about, oh, oops, sorry, I should do full screen. As Scott was talking about, we do help people, well, not Sustainable Westchester, but NYSERDA helps people across New York State get these rebates and incentives about clean heating and cooling. So if you have a house somewhere else in New York State, or a relative or a friend that you think would be a good fit for these programs, definitely tell them that there are solutions out there across New York State. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention all the wonderful groups that have come together to bring the EnergySmart Homes River Towns program to our community. And why are we doing this? Well, we know that 32% of all the greenhouse gas emissions in New York State are from our buildings. And you probably know this as we're going into the wintertime, heating season. We're spending a lot of money on our utility bills, and that's because a lot of the energy we use in our homes is for heating and cooling. So if your house is running on fossil fuel energy, be it oil, natural gas, you may be starting to think about, how can I move my house from fossil fuel-based energy to a cleaner way to heat and cool? And that solution lies within heat pumps. So if you have questions, we are able to help you over the phone. We're able to help by email. We have a list of contractor partners that we recommend. The 4 vetted community contractor partners are going to be speaking later on this call. And a nice little extra bonus is if we are able to get 10 jobs completed in each of the Rivertown municipalities, we can help to earn a $5,000 grant in each of the munis. So Daniel was talking about the different technologies, and I just want to frame them a little bit, and then we'll hear the videos. So if your house is drafty in the wintertime, expensive to heat during heating season, or actually really hot in the summertime too, you may benefit from a home energy assessment to take a look at how your house is using energy and where your house may benefit from added insulation and air sealing. Insulation is like a nice warm blanket around the home, and it helps to keep that warm air in the house in the winter, and it also helps to keep the cool air in the house in the summer. We also feel home energy efficiency is an important piece of upgrading your heating and cooling system, because you want to make sure your house is as efficient as possible before you get the new technology. And the contractors that can help with home energy efficiency on the call tonight are Energy Management Solutions and Healthy Home. The next thing that we can think about, the next technology, is air source heat pumps. And I know Daniel kind of reviewed this already, but I think sometimes it helps to hear it a few times. Air source heat pumps have two different types of applications. There's a ductless unit. So if your house has no ducts, if you have no interest in installing ducts, you may look to a ductless mini split unit. You've seen them before, probably in restaurants. There's a couple different applications. The most common one is like a big white box that sits high up on the ceiling. There are cassette applications and lower units as well, but the ductless mini split is a much more efficient way to heat and cool your house. People also like it because it's a nice custom temperature in each room. The air source heat pump also has a whole house application as well. So if you have existing ductwork or forced hot air in your home, you may look to an air source heat pump solution. And the contractors on the line that can do the air source heat pumps are Healthy Home Energy and Consulting and Bell HVAC. The heat pump hot water heater, we're going to be listening to Dean's video showing off his heat pump hot water heater. But if your unit is getting old, your current hot water heater is in need of replacement, the heat pump hot water heater is the way to go. It's 3 times more efficient, 2 to 3 times more efficient than the traditional hot water system. And it is a pretty easy switch to make and very affordable because it pays back so quickly. And then lastly, ground source heat pumps. Our contractors on the line tonight are Dandelion and Bell. Ground source heat pumps are a good fit for people that have existing ductwork in their home or are interested in installing it. And ground source heat pumps are extremely efficient ways to heat and cool. So one more shout out for the 4 contractors that we're going to be hearing from in the breakout rooms. And now let's get into our videos. So the first video we're going to see features Haven Colgate. She lives in Hastings and she did a project with Dandelion Energy. She has a geothermal project. We're going to watch her video and then we're going to do some Q&A. So as you're watching, feel free to drop a question in the chat and then we'll talk to Haven about her project. Okay, and here's our video. Just give me a thumbs up.
You may have heard of the term green energy and all of the options out there to go green. For this Westchester County resident, her answer was literally right beneath her feet.
Hi, I'm Haven. I live in Hastings on Hudson, New York, and we updated our heating and cooling system to geothermal. We moved into this house about 20 years ago. The original system was a gas furnace, so it was natural gas, forced hot air. We had this rusty outdoor air conditioner unit. And when this opportunity came along to install geothermal, we thought, well, that's perfect. We can just like put in this thing. It's like super environmentally friendly and green. And just the house is much more evenly temperatured.
Con Edison is providing millions of dollars in incentives to help our customers cover the initial costs of converting to these clean, high-efficient equipment that will lower your carbon footprint and reduce your energy costs.
The rebates when we installed the system were amazing. So the Con Ed rebates and the pricing that they were offering, I was like, well, that's actually affordable.
Geothermal technology takes advantage of the constant 55-degree temperature of the ground. The temperature stays relatively constant shortly beneath the surface throughout the seasons. Keeping that in mind, a hole is drilled a short distance from a building and filled with a loop of pipe. A water-based fluid that absorbs heat runs through the pipes. In winter, that heat is amplified using a compression cycle and distributed through the building's ducts. In summer, it works in reverse, dispersing heat from the building back to the ground.
I always had thought it was like an extremely expensive, like high-tech thing that was way beyond what the average home would ever do. It was kind of a no-brainer for me. It just felt like I knew that that was what we should do, so I did it. No regrets.
Find a clean heat participating contractor.
Okay, thanks, Amy. And hey, Haven, do you want to put a little bit more context around the video and then we'll take some questions from the audience?
Sure. I guess
someone I know who lives in Hastings reached out to me and said, hey, I work for Con Ed and we're looking for someone who can do a testimonial. I said, you know, like, if you know me, you know, I always say, sure, okay, I'll do it. And I'm very happy to do this because I do feel like the future is in, you know, converting homes to greener heating systems. I mean, it's like the big nut. And right now the rebates are so extraordinary that it's so smart to do this right now. For us, it was even more obvious because we had an old furnace and we had an old air conditioner. So like to replace those would have cost us probably as much or more than the geothermal system we put in. And I have to say, we're really satisfied with the heating quality and the air quality. It's all improved from our perspective, and I'm happy to answer any questions. You may have noted that it's 55 degrees underground in Westchester County year round. So you're taking that temperature, which is there, just sitting there, and using it for your home heat and air conditioning.
Okay. I have a question in the chat from Bill that maybe Brian from Dandelion wants to offer. Is there a minimum lot size for single family home ground heat pump?
Yeah, sure. And I actually just responded in the chat.
Oh,
the restriction is we need to be able to fit our drill rig onto your property. So if you picture like the size of a garbage truck or so, like as long as you can drive a garbage truck onto your lawn, we'll be good with our drill rig. The borehole that we put in is only about 6 inches wide, and then it just goes down hundreds of feet. So you don't need a lot of space for a vertical borehole.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Haven? Let's see. And Dandelion, also, do you guys want to talk about condos? Do you do this work in condos?
Yeah, so because the ground loop is installed in the ground, you have to own the ground. Otherwise, we'd be installing in someone else's ground. So condos, unless you own the lot, and normally that isn't the case with condos, it probably would be hard to do for a condo setup.
Okay, and I see Giovanni from Bell Heating and Cooling is on the line too. Giovanni, do you want to talk about drilling with rock? People are always concerned. There's rock, there's too much rock in my yard. I'll give him a second to unmute. Perhaps as he's doing that, Brian, do you want to answer?
Yeah, sure. Rock is actually great for drillers. It's way easier to drill through rock than it is to drill through loose sand. So we love when we hit rock, and it also is a better thermal connection because there's no air in rock, whereas there's air in loose soil. So you get better thermal connection. So we love rock, our drillers love rock, and no concern with rock.
All right. Question for Haven. Haven, how long did it take you to do this project from signing of the contract to the job completion?
So the job actually doesn't take that long, but between me calling them and getting my house vetted to see if it was the right kind of house, to the permits that need to be achieved for the town, et cetera, et cetera. I first made my first call in July of 2019, and my system went operational 6 months later. That said, it only took about approximately, I would say, 7 full days of work. Dandelion came and they drilled. It took a couple of days. Then they came back and they trenched the pipe into the garage. That took a couple of days. Then they came back, and in 2 days they had removed my old systems, installed the new furnace, and turned it on. So I think it really just depends on, you know, what the schedules are with the installer. But it's not as hard as you think it would be, and you really don't see anything after you've installed it. Like the ground is flat again, and you know, like you got to put grass back. But you know, it's just like having your other old furnace, except that you don't have a noisy air conditioner outside in the summer anymore, which is another nice plus.
Yeah, everybody loves gaining that yard space back. So at the same time Haven did her geothermal project, she also did a home energy efficiency project as well with Energy Management Solutions. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yes. So that's I would recommend that to anyone. I think, I don't know, at the time, it may still be true, Con Ed offered a free energy audit, and we had a EnergySmart, whatever this program is called, in Hastings. And so I used one of the purveyors that were recommended. It was EMS. They did a great job. it's free for them to come and check, and then they'll give you like a palette of options, like, well, you can do this and it will save you this much, BTUs or whatever. They do a blower door test so that like they pull air out of your house and they see where all the leaks are. They go around, they can tell exactly where your problems are. And I think that, no matter what you do, whether you install new heating equipment or not, everyone should do a home efficiency audit and take some steps toward that.
Okay, great. Wow, the questions are coming in so fast. I can't even keep up with this chat. But before I lose it, I just want to respond to Karen's question a little bit more about condos, and just don't want to rule out geothermal for condos because it could be possible. I mean, there's some things to get over, but if you are involved with your condo board, or if you're interested in doing a large project for the whole association, certainly there could be capabilities there. So if you're interested, definitely get in touch with us, or air source heat pumps might be a good solution as well. Okay, do you want to talk about cost, Haven?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Our system costs $20,000. They are less expensive now. I thought we were like getting in on the good deal because they had a 30% tax credit at the time, but their incentives are even larger now that you can take advantage of. So in our house, we don't have a big house. We don't have a small house. It's like a medium-sized little house, but I would recommend just getting a quote because it's less expensive than you think. If you're going to get a new gas furnace plus new air conditioner, you're going to look at that much money anyway.
Mm-hmm. Great point. Great points. Okay, we're going to move on to the next video. We're going to be meeting now. I think next up is Dave, right, in Sleepy Hollow. He did a project in his house with home energy efficiency and air source heat pumps together. And Haven, I want to say thanks so much for coming on the call tonight and sharing about your project. And certainly it's great to hear these homeowners' stories. So I'll stop talking and let's hear about Dave.
My name is Dave Aarons. I live in Sleepy Hollow. Technologies that I have in my house are, we have heat pumps or mini splits. We use them mostly for air conditioning. We've been using some of it for heat recently. And we also have solar panels that help provide us with electricity so that we don't have to pay for electricity from Con Ed or from any other service. Our heat pump system is a sort of a four unit system where we have 3 small units that are in each bedroom. So we have a 7,000 BTU in 3 bedrooms on the second floor, and then we have an 18,000 BTU on the first floor that cools the entire first floor. It all goes to one compressor that is outside the house. It generates immense amount of cooling and heating with the most minimal amount of energy, and that's one of the reasons why we decided to get it. One of the real pros of having a heat pump system is that it's completely quiet. It's so much quieter than regular window air conditioners. And it allows you to regulate temperature from room to room in such a way that it doesn't affect anybody else in the house. So it makes it really easy for people to get the right temperature to sleep in. And then on the flip side, even the compressor outside doesn't make that much noise for my neighbors. So with central air, it often has a much stronger compressor that makes a lot more noise. And also with central air, you don't get the level of regulation that you can have from room to room. There were all these opportunities to get support during COVID. One of those things was the Empower program, which NYSERDA offers to folks who are low income, that provides through a contractor, through like contractors that are approved by the state, ability for you to do a sort of a home energy assessment. And in that assessment, they see where you're losing energy and where energy efficiency can be improved in your home. So the main thing in this home was that this was built in 1900 and there was no insulation. And so what was offered through the Empower program is somebody provides cellulose blown-in insulation for essentially almost no cost. It wasn't for the entire house, but it was for almost every wall, exterior wall. So they came in and provided cellulose insulation, which immediately changed the temperature algorithm in our house. Like, the cellulose is really incredible about keeping heat out and keeping heat in. And so keeping heat out in in the summer and keeping cool air in, and the reverse in the winter. And so we felt it very quickly this summer when, it got really hot outside and it did not get that hot in the house. And it was only because of that insulation change. It really was. Biggest ways that houses lose heat. And it's just like, in your body when you lose heat through your head. Some of the benefits that I've seen from having all these energy efficiency systems is that I know what my electric bill is going to be now because I'm only spending for the connection from my solar panels to the Con Ed system, to the grid. So you have to pay for that, but everything else is already being generated by our solar panels, and we don't even have that many. So I feel like the cost is fantastic there. With the induction stove, we're not using gas. We're not getting all of that, all those fumes, all those sort of offshoot chemicals that come from natural gas that haven't really been discussed for years until just recently. And so we're using electricity for that and still not increasing our cost for electricity because of those solar panels. They go together. And then the heat pumps are fantastic. I mean, they're so much easier to manage, to use. My kids can decide when to turn it on, when to not. Sometimes I have to tell them to turn it off because, they don't really need it because it's so efficient. I think everybody knows how to use all the systems, which is also great. The other benefit, besides just the cost, is that my kids are growing up understanding that these systems are normal, just like any other system. The fact that they're going to grow up with those systems being part of their lives means that when they get to an age where they can make those choices, they know what to make choices about. They know how to have energy efficiency as part of their choices in how they move through the world. So it's helpful that even in this day and age with all the problems with climate change, that my kids are going to know a little bit from their experience in their own home.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dave, again for letting us film that video, and also shout out to Rosie for helping us get it edited. Dave, are you there? I think you are somewhere on this call.
Yes, yes, I am. Hi.
Hi, do you want to add a little bit more on top of what we just watched?
Well, no, excuse my crazy voice. I don't know what happened, but my voice was crazy. No, I think the video speaks for itself. We had, I think, like what Haven was talking about the idea that there's so many rebates and incentives right now that it's very cost effective to get any of these types of systems right now. And I think that people really can take advantage of that while they think about energy efficiency in their home. The other thing is making sure you get a home energy efficiency audit. That is a fantastic service that all these, a bunch of these different companies provide. And it helps you understand how energy flows through your house. So I would just echo that what Hayden said.
And when you were looking into this process, did you think you wanted to start with heat pumps first, or how was the order of installation?
Yeah, well, I think we were moving into a new house and we're doing renovations across, a couple of floors. So we were doing so many different things. I just started to do research individually on different things. Of course, I wanted to do solar panels. It was somewhat of a, just selfish thing, just to be like, okay, I want to get solar panels on our house if we can. But also looking into air conditioning. I was talking to a bunch of people, and, air source heat pumps were something that they were talking about. I just did my own research and figured it out, and was able to, make those choices. I sort of, when you're doing a renovation on a house, when everything is sort of new and I've never been in the house, I don't really know how the energy efficiency is in the house originally, right? I just didn't really know about that. So I took a bit of a risk just to get all these systems just because I wanted energy efficiency and more sustainability in my home. But the cost was so minimal, especially when you start renovating a home, that it felt just, a pretty easy choice for me.
Okay, so Jeff had written in with a question, can a mini split be on an interior wall? And as we're exploring Dave's story, I want to introduce Lexi from Healthy Home. They are insulation contractors and air source heat pump contractors. And Lexi, can you answer that question?
Yeah, you can definitely do a wall-mounted mini split unit where you have a outdoor unit that does the heating, the condensing unit, as you may also refer to it, and then an indoor wall-mounted unit. You see them a lot of times, we mentioned earlier, like in restaurants, you'll see them. But yeah, you can definitely mount them to an interior wall. Depending on the layout, there's definitely things you need to figure out. So your contractor will need to come out and figure out your specific detail, but it is feasible, potentially.
Yeah, and just, I mean, for us, you know, you can run lines inside the home. Like we had all these walls open. So it was an advantage that we had the walls open already as we were doing renovations, and people can run, you know, the contractors can run the lines inside, but then you can also just run them right outside the house, right down the house. And so it's fairly simple.
A lot of these solutions are definitely custom to you. So it's kind of like you just voicing exactly what you're looking for and your contractor explaining how it's possible for your specific instance. Dave had a very unique situation where he was able to do it in the middle of a renovation, and that's like spot on kind of situation. But a lot of people aren't interested potentially in renovating their home or tearing down sheetrock. So if that isn't an option, again, voicing that to your contractor and then letting know what your options are is kind of key. Kind of be your own advocate. Don't just say, when they say, oh, we're doing this because I said so. It's, well, I want this, and explain. You're the one to understand the whole process of your contractor's logic of why we're doing things certain ways.
And Dean, you had just chimed in about your project. Do you want to speak to that too?
Right. Well, I had put in a high efficiency gas furnace, a forced air furnace a few years ago. And I kind of kicked myself because it would have been great to put a geothermal heat pump system in at the time, but they weren't a thing quite yet, about 6 years ago or so, at least for homeowners. So what I decided to do recently is just to replace my air conditioning outdoor unit, my condensing unit, which was cooling only, with an air source heat pump unit. Same piping. The coil that was put in my furnace a few years ago was heat pump capable. And in other words, it had the expansion valve could open up, and when the coolant reversed in the direction for heating. And so I had Bell put in the external outdoor unit, just to replace the one I had, which we moved off to the side. It's now for sale if anybody wants an air conditioning only condensing unit. And I'm getting heat right out of my registers right now that come from the heat pump. So I'm happy with that change.
That's great. Okay, do we have any more questions for Dave and his project? While we're waiting for those to come in, Dave, do you want to speak to your plans as a landlord as well? Your plans?
Yes. Well, so as part of our renovations, we had a 3-story house, and so we have a tenant on the 3rd floor. We live on the first 2. We did all these efficiencies initially just for the first 2 floors. At some point, we're going to do this similar thing to the 3rd floor. Install a couple of heat pumps, air source heat pumps, so that they can do all their heating and cooling through that, and really just try to turn off the gas that we have in our gas furnace. And just so you know, in the process of the insulation that I just spoke about in the video, they did a bunch of the stuff in the attic and the 3rd floor sort of dormers, and so it was pretty incredible that.
Just to touch on what Dave said about like turning off the gas, I know Con Ed spoke earlier about this, but that would be like what they call decommissioning. So if you are thinking about turning it over, that would help qualify for you for tier 2B, which is decommissioning, which basically means you're choosing to no longer have your heating and cooling be served by any combustion fuels. That does not mean you're required to do that. If you again, that's where these tiers are a little confusing, but if you do choose to no longer have any sort of combustion fuel be run to your house to do heating and cooling for your home, that would qualify you for decommissioning. If you have a gas stove or something like that, that's still okay, but the goal of the program of New York State Clean Heat is to no longer use combustion fuels to heat or cool your home, that's why the highest tier has that much incentive, because that's really the goal, is to really decommission the old combustion systems. I just feel like that's helpful kind of to understand with those different tiers. It can be a little confusing. So when Dave said, oh, I want to stop having it entirely, that would be what we call decommissioning, which is that $5,000 per 10,000 BTU.
And if I can add just one thing on that, when as a contractor, we're designing the amount of heat you need for your home, we're taking into account not needing to use fossil fuels at all. So we're trying to 100% heat and cool your home with the heat pump. So again, so that you then can qualify for all those big incentives, which again, you guys are all Con Ed customers. I'm in Connecticut, and it's shocking how big the Con Ed incentive is. You guys get $6,500 per heat pump or per ton. My house would get $750 per. That's a huge difference, right? So you make sure you keep that in mind, that you guys are getting amazing incentive. It's the biggest one in the entire country, Westchester County. If you go across the river, it's only $2,000 per ton. It's shocking.
You don't even have to go across the river. You can just go like an hour north.
Yeah, that's it.
Realistic.
It's really bonkers. When Con Ed sent us the email, I thought they were joking, because it's so much bigger than anywhere else.
Thanks, Brian, for that context. I think it's definitely important to remember how big the rebates really are. So I just want to get to this other question in the chat that Haven started to answer. Is the ducted option more or less efficient or comfortable versus the mini split? So Giovanni, are you on the line? I see you're there. Trying to get another one of the contractors.
Yes, yeah. I am present, and yes, and there were a couple of great points were brought up just before, which is very important for everyone here to understand. When most people hear the word heat pump, you automatically think of the ductless wall-mounted units. You could also have sort of the same setup as you have for the central air conditioning system for the heat pump. We have ducted heat pump systems. So the question is, more comfortable, with every design and every system. One of the pros with the ductless systems is that each individual indoor unit acts as its own zone, basically. With the ducted system, we can add separate zones, but because you are now dealing with ductwork, it is pretty close to impossible to have an airtight duct. So there's going to be some type of leakage somewhere, but there is very, very comfortable. I mean, a ducted heat pump system is extremely efficient, a lot more efficient than the conventional heating system, put it that way.
Okay, thanks. And a question from David in the chat. This is for any of the contractors that want to respond. What do you think are the most common apprehensions that people have? Or maybe Dave or Haven, you guys want to share, what were you most worried about before installing the heat pumps? Don't all go at once.
I would say a large one that I hear a lot is just the old mindset that old heat pumps years ago couldn't keep up with the cold temperatures of Northeast, and that's just not the case anymore. Technology has gotten a lot better, and also I applaud both Haven and Dave for really touting the idea of making sure your home is ready for the technology, insulating, air sealing, and being really cognizant of that, and really keeping that in mind. The first thing we want to do is evaluate and make sure your house is heat pump ready, whether that be a geothermal or air source, and also understanding that technology is different now. I've definitely spoken to some customers that are thinking 20 years ago heat pumps. They're they can't keep up with the Northeast, and they definitely can now.
I'll jump in there. I mean, we are very comfortable. And I also wanted to say that your installer or the person that you contact will tell you if your house is ready, and they can help you with that. And Dandelion filled in all of the rebate information, and it was really easy. Like it was really easy. The one thing and also EMS did, we got a Con Ed rebate for some of the work we did to insulate the house. And EMS said, oh, you're going to qualify for this rebate. And they sent in the paperwork. I mean, it's really easy to do this stuff. Some home projects are very complicated, but this was pretty like easy. The one thing I was worried about is I was worried like, well, what if they drill through the rocks and it somehow like upsets the foundation of my house, or something happens where, you know, the soil caves in? And I mean, it was a unfounded fear. So, but I did have that worry, you know, like what if they drive that big truck and there's a sinkhole in my backyard that I didn't know about, or, you know, that was my worry, but nothing happened.
Brian, do you want to speak to the sinkhole feel, the fear of that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd be afraid of sinkholes too, like if I knew there were sinkholes in my backyard. But we do a lot of design work where we send people out to the site to ensure that we know exactly where we're going to go. We plan out our route before bringing in the rig on there. And in terms of all the buried utilities, you know, we find those all again before we even drive on the property. There's the dig safe that you call in, so we know exactly where your electric line is and your sewer line is, and you know, all the things. So in terms of worry about us hitting things, we do our very best. We don't want to hit them either, right? So maybe even more so than you, because it'd be on our problem to go fix it. So we'll do a lot of work ahead of time to make sure that we're not running into anything.
Can I just say something too? Like, I think when I was doing some of this work, I don't know, Haven, if this was you too, like, or Dean, you know, this is even like a year and a half ago, there wasn't this type of understanding of all the different technologies and coordinated and, you know, in one place, like this is tonight and what is happening around the state. It was still like a lot of, for me, individual trying to figure it out, trying to ask this person or find it from this website. Like, and so now it's just so much more coordinated and so much more available, all the information and all the technology and all the clarity. It just, in a year and a half, it feels different.
I echo that. And these programs, like the EnergySmart program that Sustainable Westchester ran with Hastings, that was very helpful. I mean, I'm on the Conservation Commission of Hastings, so I went to the meetings. I kind of had to help sponsor it and be there and stuff, so I had to learn about it. I did find it like very, I mean, that said, I did know about geothermal since college, right? Because it's one of the energy technologies that they've talked about. But I know someone in Hastings, it cost him $90,000 to put in his geothermal like 15 or 20 years ago. He got rebates also, but not to the extent that they're available now. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I think that, you know, just go forth and take the plunge and change your heating system. I can't say enough that, you know, we all need to do that. So it's easy to do, and it's the right thing, and you're helping the world. And, you know, so, I mean, obviously it costs money, so you have to have that also, but in the long run, you will improve the, you know, resale value of your house. You will, you know, have the karma of not generating fossil fuels, and you will have a more comfortable house in the meantime as well. You know, I keep thinking we should have bought that new refrigerator 10 years ago instead of waiting till, you know, someday we sell our house to put something new in. But anyway.
Thanks, you guys, for the responses. And thanks to David for that great question. I'm going to incorporate that into future webinars. So we have a question from Sarah. Hi, Sarah, about refrigerants. Certainly people are worried about refrigerants. So Scott from NYSERDA, do you want to talk about refrigerant leakage around the mini splits?
Yeah, sure. I actually answered Sarah in the chat too.
Oh, sorry.
It's definitely something, it's a concern, right? So the global warming potential of the current refrigerants that are being used is a lot higher than carbon dioxide or even methane that's in natural gas piping. I think there are ways to control the risk, which is one of the things that we're focusing on, which is, you know, for air source heat pumps, it's all about quality installation, training contractors how to do proper brazing, do proper pressure testing on systems when they're put in. I guess I'll make a point that in some ways, you know, the risks are not much different from a central air conditioning system, which also has refrigerant lines that typically run the length of your house out to a condenser. I guess you could argue maybe those don't get used as often as you would with a heat pump, which is doing heating and cooling. But we've to the extent that we've been able, we're considering doing some sort of a New York State specific study on the issue. We've looked at some European studies which suggest that you need a whole lot of leakage to overcome the global warming benefit of heat pumps, implemented at a large scale. We're also doing, along with the manufacturers, research and development on global warming potential refrigerants. And there's a lot more work that has to be done there. And that's, in our view, a critical piece in the step toward making this transition. Doesn't mean that the heat pumps right now that use the higher global warming potential refrigerants aren't part of the solution, because they absolutely are. And even if you have some modest amount of leakage, there's going to be an overall net benefit. But if we're going to, economy-wide convert everything to heat pumps, it would be better to do so with lower global warming potential refrigerants. I got asked in the chat by someone else, there are some heat pump hot water heater systems that are split systems, one made by Sandon that I'm aware of that uses CO2 as a refrigerant. There aren't any heating systems that I'm aware of that use CO2 as a refrigerant yet. But I think they're coming. Propane is another refrigerant that's been worked on a lot. I'll also maybe mention that, to the extent that you have the refrigerant self-contained within an appliance like you do for ground source heat pumps, there's lower risk. So the higher risk generally comes from having to run refrigerant lines over long lengths. The more refrigerant line you have, the more and the more connections there are, the more potential there is for leaks. So hopefully that's at least a start to the answer. It definitely is an important issue, though.
Mm-hmm. Great point. Okay, we have one more video left. We're gonna watch Dean's story of his heat pump hot water heater. Then we'll do some more questions, and we then have a half hour for the breakout rooms. So let us pull up Dean's video.
Hi, I'm Dean Galley. I'm a homeowner in Tarrytown, New York. A year ago, I said, what makes sense these days is to switch away from gas. And I looked at the options, and I knew that an electric water heater can be pretty expensive to run, but there's a new technology that's a fairly new technology, but it's been around for a while, called a heat pump that increases the efficiency of your use of electricity by a factor of 3 or 4. So it actually becomes more energy efficient than using a cheaper source like natural gas. So I ordered a heat pump water heater, had it delivered, had it connected, and here it is. For one thing, it's tied into the Wi-Fi in my house, so I can actually access it through an app on my phone. You can see that matches the temperature setting that's on there. I can run this up and down. If I'm remote, I can drop it, and you can see the minute I do that, it changes right on the water heater, so it's all connected. What happens with a heat pump water heater is there's a refrigeration unit in here that actually runs in reverse. Instead of cooling the water, it heats it. And the way it does that is by taking the air from the basement, running it through an evaporative process, extracting the heat from the air in the basement, increasing the temperature of the water, and putting cold air out into the basement, which is the cold that used to be in the water. Right now, it just clicked on. It's pretty quiet. You can't hear it very much, but there's cold air coming out here right now because the heat from the air in the basement is being put into the water, and the cold is being removed. And so it pumps the cold air out of pumps the cold out of the water. That's why it's a heat pump. It's a cold pump too. The heat pump water heater ran me a little over $1,000. I got it on sale at a local home center, had it delivered, and then I had the plumber hook it up, and the electrician bring in the electric line, which never was here before because I had a gas water heater, which didn't use electricity. So between the electric and the plumbing, it was a simple task, and I love it. Every little bit that we can do to remove our dependence on carbon-based fuels is a step in the right direction.
Okay, great. I love how that video came out. Dean, do you want to add a little bit more context?
Sure. Yeah, I as I said in the video, I had a gas water heater before, and it was already 20 years old. It was a 12-year warranty on the heater. It was 20 years old. I said, I better replace this before it starts leaking. And so I had a choice of, I certainly wasn't going to put another gas water heater in, and I had a choice of going to an electric resistance heater, water heater, which is not very efficient. And I looked at the state of the art at the heat pump water heaters, and I said, this really makes a lot more sense. And I had the space for it. They're a little bit taller than usual, but not so much. They're pretty much a little wider to try to keep the height down, so it fit right where I needed it. And I went that route. The first one they delivered to me had a little damage on it. It was dented, so I said, send it back. I got a good one, and installed it, and I've been happy ever since. I see really no downside to it at all, and I don't notice any problem of, say, the water not being quite as hot when you first turn it on. It's just as hot as it ever was with a gas water heater, and it recovers very quickly too, just like it should. It does have a resistance element in it. If for some reason you're drawing so much hot water that the heat pump can't keep up with it, it would kick in, but it just never really needs to do that in my experience. Just to amplify what others have said here, I have an older house. It's even older than Dave's. I did do a lot of energy upgrades in it as well. I had an energy audit done, put insulation in the roof and in the upper story walls, and had the basement joist sealed, which keeps my basement a little bit more even in temperature, which helps the heat pump as well, the water heater. So any questions, I'm happy to help with.
Looks like we have a question from Diana. She wants to know, do you feel there's cool air in your basement, making it a little bit chilly in the wintertime?
Well, my basement doesn't have insulated foundation walls, so I don't notice that cooling effect that much. But actually, in the summertime, it's an advantage, because if you get some humidity in your basement, the heat pump compressor acts sort of like a dehumidifier in the basement. I do have another one that I run if I need to, but the basement keeps drier because of that. The what do you call it? The condensate from the heat pump runs right into a laundry sink that's nearby. So it acts like a dehumidifier, which is an advantage as well.
Great advantage. Charlotte has a question. She's a little confused about ground source, air source, okay, and a heat pump hot water heater. So just to clarify, the heat pump hot water heater is another technology. So even if you don't do air source heat pump or geothermal, you could look to switching your hot water heater right now to a heat pump hot water heater. But, well, I should say, and if you do choose to move to geothermal, Brian, do you want to talk a little bit about the additional capacity?
With a slight curveball. So the technology exists that you can take the extra heat from a geothermal system and move it into a hot water like holding tank, which kind of preheats your water till it then goes into a traditional water heater or an air source heat pump water heater or whatever other water heater you have. So geothermal doesn't have enough heat to get your hot water all the way to what you need to take showers, especially because it doesn't have any extra heat in the springtime and the fall time when the heat pump's not on. So you'd still need a traditional water heater. They do sometimes install like a holding tank that makes your water heating process just a little bit more efficient. So that technology does exist if you wanted to look into that.
Okay, great. Let's see, what other questions do we have for, well, let me take a detour. There's a question about if you have a gas stove and gas fireplace, what could you do now? Dave, do you want to talk about your induction stove a little bit more? I'm not sure if he's still there.
Yeah, yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sure. The induction stove, it's a cool thing. There's a little bit of a learning curve, just like anything else, but we did it again because we were renovating our home. So it was very easy, renovating the kitchen. What are our choices? And I had looked into, or my wife and I looked into like induction stove. We went to an actual demonstration locally somewhere, and it was just fascinating. I did some research around, costs, and it was just on par with any other, gas stove that's, pretty high end. And so we got it. It's really, it's all the things that you've heard about. You could boil water like super fast. All sorts of like heating and cooling is super fast. There's no radiant heat, so you don't get any of that. And obviously you don't get the, off gassing from the gas. Our kids also know how to use it really easily. So again, it's something that we don't feel like we have to worry about as much with gas. And, you can put a piece of paper between the, the cooktop and the pot, and that piece of paper will not burn. So that's sort of cool. Anybody have any questions?
I think we're good.
Right.
Sarah, you want to talk about what you're putting in the chat?
Sure. Hi. I just wanted to mention that we use an induction stove also, but we're not ready to renovate our kitchen yet and make that whole switch. So in the meantime, we're just using a portable induction stove on our countertop. So we use that to offset most of our cooking, which is really handy.
Okay.
And they're like $50 at IKEA, if I remember correctly.
I didn't know that. Cool.